Good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm very excited to play Barber. So it's gonna be fun.
Oh, we're excited to hear it. It's my
Um,
it's my ultimate top violin concerto of all
wow.
time, I think.
Okay. What
Yeah.
do you love about it? Like, what's I know I'm not interviewing you, but still, I'm curious.
Hi everyone, welcome to OSA Backstage, and surprise, it's a Masterworks 4 twofer. Yes, we are talking with violinist Francisco Fullana. What a fun conversation. He's such a musician. I know that's the vaguest sentence of all time, but that's the truth of it. He is such a musician. He is genuinely happy about getting to do everything and anything, and he is a delight. And I cannot wait for you all to hear him now, and for you to come next week and hear him perform the Barber. It's going to be exquisite. Enjoy.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I'm very excited to play Barber. So it's gonna be fun.
Oh, we're excited to hear it. It's my
Um,
it's my ultimate top violin concerto of all
wow.
time, I think.
Okay. What
Yeah.
do you love about it? Like, what's I know I'm not interviewing you, but still, I'm curious.
It sounds so it sounds American. It sounds like apple pie. There's a
Yeah.
comfort level from
Mm-hmm.
go
Yeah.
that just, and then it goes from that to absolutely, pardon my French, batshit crazy by the
I
third
was gonna say,
movement.
yeah. That's a good one. Good to say it. Yeah.
How often do you get to play it? Because you're very much a classical rep guy.
Yeah, I get to play. Well, I've been playing a lot of 20th century concertos. I love these like 1930s, so like Berg, Barber, Britten, Stravinsky.
Yeah.
There's something, even if they're very different. Simonovsky, I've played a lot. So yeah, I've played it a few times. It's been a couple of years at this point, but
Okay.
yeah, I had a phase that I played it a lot, and now it's really nice to bring it back and doing it in Utah next year and a couple other places. So
Nice.
it's nice. Yes,
Very cool. Well, we should actually get into it so you could
let's
talk
do
about
it.
it more.
Sounds good.
Let me introduce you to Serena. She is our assistant conductor and my partner in crime.
Oh,
Uh,
hello, Serena.
Hello, nice to meet you. And we're
Nice
looking
to meet
forward to
you.
having you here next
Oh,
week.
awesome. Thank you. Of course. I'm excited to.
Susanna was sharing some of your text message.
Oh, uh-oh. No, just kidding.
she's uh she's half very excited, half very nervous. So I'm super excited to
uh,
see what you two come up
oh,
with. But
oh, so you have heard. Okay, cool. Yes.
mhm.
I'm still excited. I don't know yet, so we'll see. I mean, she has to send me some options, so
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I mean, come on, I know her
okay.
well. We've played together at this point, what, I don't know, at least 10 times, something like that, because we did a couple of tours together. So, yeah.
Amazing. Because of Apollo's Fire or other
That's right.
things,
Yeah.
or
So she did not, she didn't play in the recording that I did of the Four Seasons, but I believe she was in the tour when we released it. So that was it was a crazy thing. It was like 11 concerts in 12 days, something like that.
Wow.
So
yeah.
yeah, it was fun. I loved it. Hmm.
We'll have to, okay, we're gonna come back to that.
Sure.
But
Sounds good.
would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Francisco Fullana. I am a violinist originally from Spain, now here in the United States for many, many years. And I'm really looking forward to playing the Barber Violin Concerto with Christopher Allen and the Omaha Symphony.
Yeah. Where did music start for you? Did it start at home? Was it at school?
Well, I mean, it was kind of like any other activity. My parents, when I was like 4.5, I went to some of those like in the rhythm music little classes. They're high school teachers, so they're not musicians at all. My mom is a math teacher, of all things.
Okay.
But yeah, I think they wanted me to just learn an instrument and kind of fell in my hands that, they brought me to a concert. I seemed to like it. And I started like any other kid with like Suzuki and I got very lucky that there was this very special kid teacher in Mallorca, where I'm from, in Palma. So I think that definitely kind of got things going in the right way and kind of made me fall in love with music from the very beginning. So
So you have two high school teachers for parents, and they obviously thought this was important. But at any
Mhm.
point were they like flabbergasted that you were taking it to this completely like new level, or were they just along for the ride the whole time?
I think, I mean, they were as supportive as it gets. They've always been, still are, very lucky in that way. I think pretty early it seemed like pretty, I guess, obvious or whatever that that things were going well and like that I should pursue this more seriously, or, kind of like really make it the main thing that I focused on outside of, regular schooling. So yeah, I mean, they actually moved for me to study violin to Madrid from Mallorca when I was 11, which is pretty early. It's pretty, I always, as an adult now, it seems pretty crazy. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh man, as an adult thinking about an 11-year-old, that's
right. It's
it's like
like,
thinking about it's a baby.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And like, yeah, so when I was 8 and a half, there was this violin teacher, Varta Manuyan from Wisconsin University, passed a few years ago now. And he came to Mallorca to give like a a master class and a recital or something. He had a friend there, and um, I was kind of the good little kid of the school, and so there's a bunch of high schoolers and whatever, and then I played for him Bach A minor first movement of the violin concerto, and and then he was like to my parents, there's this my former student lives in Madrid. You need to like send your kid to him. You should go every month to have lessons with him. My parents are like, we can't just like quit work a week every month to do this, but hey, we'll give it a shot. We'll visit him a couple times. And he was very good. Manuel Guillen, he's still, a good friend. And we ended up, going every 3 or 4 months and then eventually moving. So, yeah.
Okay, that's super cool. So
Yeah.
they went along with it from go. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you eventually decided to come to New York and
Hmm.
Juilliard.
Yeah.
And I was like 16, is that right?
Yeah, so this teacher, after he was in Wisconsin, he had studied with Dorothy DeLay at Juilliard and with Masao Kawasaki, which was eventually my teacher. So I went to Aspen, I would say, very traditional way of like a teenager, just from Europe instead of the US. But I would, so many of our colleague musicians have gone through Aspen at one point or the other, and so I went there, and yeah, I think it became pretty clear I needed some I would say like a lot of work in certain areas. And my teacher, so Kawasaki, was like, "Hey, like your kid is very talented." My parents like, "Your kid is very talented and all that, but we need to work on some things. Like, why don't you? If there's a way for him to come a year early to New York, have some lessons, prepare the audition, and then we can like really dig deep, as soon as possible." And that's what I did. So when I was 16, I finished high school early, kind of accelerated the last couple of years and came to New York. I was there for preparing the audition and then got into Juilliard. So yeah,
What did you have to work on?
a lot of technical things, honestly. It's like I've had a very different, I would say, upbringing in terms of my music. Just as my strengths and weaknesses than a lot of my colleagues that are playing around. So like I think my teacher at the time had a very strong focus on musicality and like kind of natural phrasing and sound and things like that. And I didn't quite have some of the left hand discipline that a lot of people kind of get when they're a teenager. So I did all that work a lot kind of in my late teens and early 20s, which it's okay. It all worked out at the end. So
I love that you say that a lot of teenagers grasp the left hand technique like that.
sure.
No.
I mean, yeah, it's I don't know. It's something I'm always curious, right? Like if you think about like kind of alternative paths of the
Yeah.
of your existence, like what would have happened if I had some of like a lot of my friends from Juilliard or people that are in like great orchestras or soloing around like the teenage education and training that they had. I'd be very curious whether it be better, worse, different. Like you never know. We'll never know.
No, I mean that's half the joy of it, right? Is like
Yeah,
you just get to keep going the path that you're on. But now I'm
yeah.
really curious because I know that you are really big in music education. Like
Hmm.
you are especially with kids getting them into the 17th and 18th century rap, right?
Hmm.
So what kind of teacher are you? Are you focused on the musicality or are you focused on the technique or do you try to find a way like blend the two together?
Yeah, I mean, well, I never had like a full-time student. Like I've never had like a professor position or anything like that. I prefer actually doing the kind of these residencies with youth orchestras and university orchestras and kind of really working in this, I guess, a little more kind of holistic approach in terms of like performing together and working together. So obviously, I think. some of that maybe kind of natural approach or musical approach that a lot of kids, I do feel the flip side of all this, right? It's like they don't get when they're like 14 or 15, all they're worried about is like playing in tune with a great, with a big sound and like, as fast as whatever the tempo is says. And I think I try to give, since I'm not with them full time, I definitely try to give them almost like treat them like equals, which I think works really well. They don't, again, sometimes they're a little bit surprised or confused, but by the end, it usually, I think it, brings this kind of spirit and energy to their playing. Because then, they feel like they have a say in what they're doing. They're like thinking more actively. They're, kind of listening better, which I think it's super important and hard, really hard to do. And yeah, they're just more aware of like their feelings, their reactions, their actual things that are coming out of their instrument, things like that.
So it is very much the getting to the heart of the why
Hmm.
and allowing them to project
Yeah,
themselves. Yeah.
exactly. And like kind of listening to themselves both in like an emotional way and also in a actual sense. I think, I worked with Midori in the later part of my education, and the one thing that she's a master at that she really just kind of pushed, every time that I played for her, is really learning how to listen and how to navigate that balance between kind of acting and reacting and actually analyzing at the same time. Because I think some people get very focused on just like, trying to do it right or whatever, right? Like very like, well, my teacher has said that my elbow should be a certain way, and then this is how it's going to be. But like, are you really listening? Are you really paying attention how that's changing your sound, or whether it works or not for you? Or, there's many things you can do just with your ears on a day to day, kind of when you're practicing.
Yeah. Well, would
Yeah.
you what would you say is there like a biggest misconception when you do these residencies that you keep seeing with the kids, or is every group different?
Every group is slightly different. I mean, in the case of like, especially when I do like this kind of conductorless, youth or kind of camerata style, like string orchestra projects that I love doing. The biggest thing I think it's like they're so used to just following whoever is either conducting or even playing. They're and this is a very basic, again, like in a way, as you get older, it's a very basic chamber music thing, right? Of like leading together and breathing together and like leading from the bottom, the sound, right? Like the cellist and the basses. And that's things that you learn, yeah, like in string quartets when you're maybe, especially in college or even a little bit later, right? In chamber music festivals, things like that. But if you talk to a 14-year-old kid in a, very good like music program somewhere, chances are they look at you like, what are you talking about? So yeah, so I think that's, to me, that's kind of always what I try to push for.
So cool. It's so interesting because being an orchestra musician is essentially like, yes, I will go with the group.
Mhm.
I will do what is on the page. I will do
Yeah.
what the maestro is telling me, but at the same time not sitting and waiting to
Yeah.
react and knowing what you're supposed to be doing. So that's so fun. And your projects, we mentioned Susanna. So you've
Hmm.
worked with our concertmaster a number of
Yes.
times, especially in Apollo's Fire, but
Mhm.
your resume is like full of ensembles like that.
Mhm.
Did you What happened between Juilliard and the start of your career that
Mhm.
has led you to this arc of
Yep.
I'm going to get to play chamber music with the best chamber music ensembles
Mhm.
in the world?
Yeah. Look, I think a couple of things happened. I mean, first of all, definitely as I was ending my grad school, postgrad, things like that, I got the chance to go to Marlborough Music Festival, which is like, again, that was what really kind of inspired me to be like, I wish I had this, like, because you get to play, with like Mitsuko Uchida or like Richard Good or, like the Warneri Quartet members. And I played like Michael Tree's last concert as, there and things like that. And it's just super, super special, and you learn so much. And that's why, kind of this whole youth orchestra and kind of playing together idea came about. Because I don't think people should get that much earlier than when you're going to some, elite chamber music festival type thing. And then yeah, after that, I also spent a year and a half, 1.5 seasons at the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra as their co-concertmaster. That was, I always say, kind of my only full-time job I've ever had, and which was amazing. That's actually where I met Jeanette from Apollo's Fire. You know, got to play with like Martin Frost and Patricia Kobaczynskaya and some really inspiring people. And as my solo career was kind of doing its own thing and growing, and then I had to leave. I guess I couldn't really do both at the same time. Still, like, I got so much out of learning how to lead a rehearsal, learning how to play together with a fantastic group of people, crazy hard repertoire, week after week without a conductor in, kind of always very ambitious programming. Yeah, so for me, it was really kind of music, like in a music sense, life changing in the sense of like being able to now when I play as a solo, it's like you have such a you can I feel like I learned really how to listen again, back to listening, but like how to listen to like the whole group while you're still playing the solo part, and kind of hopefully be able to shift and lead little things just with your sound and your gestures, so you can kind of shape things the way you're connecting with the clarinet, or the way the basses are really pushing something or leaning back, and kind of working on those things organically in rehearsal. So
Do you enjoy when you're working with a full orchestra? So not like Chamber Philadelphia or Apollo's. Do you enjoy the opportunity with the full orchestra to try and have that symbiotic relationship with the conductor and the ensemble?
of course. I mean, that's
Yeah.
like that's the most fun part, right? And it's like again, I'm going, going to be in Omaha, first time playing there, and it's so interesting to because every orchestra is different, every conductor is different, and it's always fascinating and super super interesting to see what you can do in rehearsal, and like how things can be. There's just like so much you can do in kind of have a short amount of time. Yeah, there's so much you can do again just by the playing, and just the little conversations that you have with the conductor on stage, and even off the stage, when you're just having like little moments with people, and being able to kind of understand where they're coming from, or what they like, something that sparked their attention or whatever, and then kind of building those that dynamic, and that kind of molding it together.
Oh man.
I'm curious now. Was conducting ever a part of like learning how to lead an ensemble? Did you have to take a course? We just talked to Christopher Allen for this podcast recently, and he said that it was a mandatory course that he had to take, and that a lot of instrumentalists got a lot out of a course like that. Has that ever been a part of your education, or have you even ever been interested in that kind of musical leadership?
It's funny, yeah. It's like I've always wanted to do it, and it just hasn't. Two things. Literally never even picked up a baton or conducted anything that maybe, you know, anything that definitely didn't have my violin in my hand anyway, in some shape or form. There's something so natural. I always say, for example, like I'm a terrible dancer, and like I've taken like bachata lessons and things like that. It's not pretty. It's not great. But then the moment I have my violin in my hand, it just feels so natural, and like whenever I'm explaining something, where even if I'm not playing, and even just like showing it or singing or whatever, the moment I put sing like a lip act, how to position my body.
Hope we lost Francisco a little bit, I think. Okay, we'll wait. I'm so excited to get. Hopefully Francisco's internet comes back, but there you are. Okay, we
sorry.
briefly lost you. So you
I'm
were
sorry.
saying you're a horrible dancer, but
Yes.
when you put your violin in your hand and you get to demonstrate something or sing something, it becomes natural.
Yeah, and so I think I think like I'm very clumsy otherwise outside the violin, so there's always been that mental block of not having the violin in my hand to really try out conducting. But that's something I feel even for leading conductorless, like I've been doing some Beethoven symphonies conductorless and things like that, and I would love to to have some lessons. So actually, Jose Luis Gomez, who was with you guys recently, he's a good friend, and I've asked him. It's like, Jose Luis, we gotta get together, and you gotta just teach me some basics and like let's go through a piece that I've already done. I don't know, like Beethoven 8 or Eroica or something. Like let's just like go through it and see how it goes. So,
Violinist to violinist, conductor to
so
potential
exactly
future
right. I
conductor.
mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The
So yeah.
man, I see. So I just finished reading a book like a couple months ago about the history of conducting, and blew my mind that actually the very first conductors were the first violinist and
Mm-hmm,
a keyboardist, and
mm-hmm,
hopefully working together, but sometimes not.
mm-hmm.
And so in reality, it's like you have been fulfilling the role of the conductor if you've been doing these conductorless
Yeah.
ensembles just with your usual stick and not.
Exactly. Yeah, but really though, it's
Yeah.
like I mean, like I've done Beethoven concerto quite a bit without a conductor, and it's challenging. I mean, it's hard to play that piece, the way it's like the
Yeah.
violin part famously not the easiest piece, and but then lead an ensemble to kind of make it sound cohesive and organic, and have them lead certain things, and so. But then without my violin, it would feel very weird. So, but we'll see.
Is that your happy place? With is that like where you're most comfortable in that sort of environment, or do you just like it week to week to change? What's your
Oh, you mean like conductorless versus conductor, or?
sure?
Yeah, I like. I mean, I like the variety for sure. I mean, I always say it's like if I had my way, like it'd be like 2 weeks of playing with conductor, 1 week without it, and then a week of like a youth orchestra residency type thing. That would be plus, maybe obviously some chamber music every, in between. But yeah, but I like the variety. I'm a very curious person, and I like kind of diving very. I try to dive deep, and this is why I love like playing a lot of different pieces kind of in a row, because it's so fun to be able to, like, I don't know, with the barber now, right? Like the last few weeks, they've been like really deep into it, and it's like reading his biography and like reading books in like the New York in the 1930s and 40s, and listening to interviews with him, and like listen, there's this beautiful album of like his favorite singers singing his music, that it's not like the old school like RCA label that
Yeah.
clearly he put together because it was his very favorite singers, and things like that. It's like it's really fun, and I love doing this, and then in 2 weeks like do that, spend another month with like Berg and really go crazy with that, which is in a few weeks, so things like that.
What a cool rabbit hole. What kind of voice did Barbara gravitate toward then?
Well, it was very low. So, Fisher the Scow, the famous singer. So that's one for a male voice. I'm gonna now you're putting me on the spot. What's her name? The African American singer, soprano.
Kathleen Battle,
No.
Jesse
Miriam.
Norman.
It's not. I want to say Leonore, but it's not Leonore. It's something. You know what? I'm gonna have to look this up. This is what you.
This is
what
very
you get me
important. I
into.
didn't mean to put you on the spot more.
No, it's great. I love it. Here we go. Leontine Price.
Uh,
Beautiful voice. Um, there we go. Yeah, she. Oh my gosh! If you ever get a chance to listen to her singing Barber, it's very, very special. And it's like just beautiful vibrato, very lyrical. He was really into poetry, so I think his world was just so. He was not a flashy guy. He was not a. He was pretty. I think pretty nerdy, pretty shy in a way, but also just I think he just loved like kind of like this expression and very like almost like romantic quality to the sound that these singers have.
do you okay, so you've been deep diving this and
Mhm.
reading his biography, and do you feel like that changes if you do that almost every time you come back to a concerto? Does that
Yeah,
mean that every time you play it you have some new element of it that
I
you
hope
bring to the
so.
performance?
I
Yeah.
hope so. I mean, it's like a living thing, right? Like our relationships with pieces, it's so crazy, and I think like you always feel like, oh man, like I wish I had this knowledge, or I approached it in a certain way, let's say like a year and a half ago, right? And I'm sure if you talk to me next time I play next year, I'll say the same, I'll be like, oh, but I was thinking about this, and like, yeah, I mean, I think it's never ending, and that's the beauty of it. This is what like the famous Casals quote. Right, where he was like, Maestro, why are you practicing? For those who don't know it, right? Like, Maestro, well, why are you practicing so much? You've played, all over the world for, you're 80 or whatever. And then he's like, well, I think I'm finally getting better. And that's, I think every musician should feel that way. And I think that's that curiosity and that, yeah, like never ending search is what makes this job so special and so, so amazing. So,
So, with this kind of curiosity and deep dive, is that
mhm,
kind of how you started your path towards playing on gut strings and like into that level of nerdiness? Can you
mhm.
talk about how does one even acquire gut strings? I think
What
Yeah, I
are
mean,
gut
what
strings?
are gut
yeah,
strings?
ooh, that's a good
Or,
question. Yeah, let's say, well, let's start from just kind of the basics, right? Like from until what 1900 or so, every violinist, every violin was played on these natural gut strings, which are made of lamb gut, kind of stretched and kind of curled together, very very thin and very delicate, and they have this beautiful, very warm sound. But in the halls, like like the big hall, like a Chili's and Cedar Hall, it's they don't have the projection of the modern metal strings. So after 1900, they started making first the wound gut, which was like with silver or later aluminum, which even maybe came a little bit before. And then eventually they got rid of the last thing was under the E string, which they made of this like metal wire that's not even wound instead of the natural gut, right? So even Chrysler Heifetz played a lot of their careers in some sort of gut strings. And yeah, this famous Izai, for example, was one of the last people to switch late in his career, and Chrysler kept telling him like, man, you gotta switch to this CLE thing. It's amazing. So yeah, so of course you think about Bach, you think about Mozart, you think of these 18th century composers, all Vivaldi, of course, all their music was envisioned for gut strings, envisioned in certain cases for different tuning, a little bit lower. So the tension on the instrument was a lot lower. So actually, once we started playing with a higher pitch, which is now, 440, 442, 19th century, they started changing the neck. They started putting the bass bar, which is this little bar under that's glued to the top of the violin underneath inside the box, making it thicker and stronger so we could have more tension and sound bigger and bigger as the halls were getting bigger and some of the music was getting, you really needed that power with the bigger orchestras. So yeah, that's kind of, I would say, the rundown of, the original gut. And these days, a lot of artists are, including myself, are uh, playing that repertoire with the or those original, kind of obviously not original gut strings, but like they're companies that make them in the same recipes as back then. So yeah, you can order them just online, just like everything else these days. There's this. There are a couple brands. The Aquila is the one I use, which is they have the most beautiful sound. They're these Italian. They're very delicate. They break very easily, like temperature changes, even if you have your hand on the neck of the violin for a little too long, things like that, they break very easily. But they sound the most beautiful. So if you're careful, it's worth it. But yeah, I started, kind of listening to a lot of Baroque music with period, in period playing. A lot of the English, the Trevor Pinnocks and the Rachel Podgers, the violinists, things like that. And as I was learning more and more Bach, I started. It was actually Midori who recommended me to work with this Baroque flute player out in LA. So I started coaching with her. So I never actually had a Baroque violin lesson as all this was going on. And yeah, as I got to know Jeanette Sorrell from Apollo's Fire and a couple of Jonathan Cohen from Arcangelo in the UK, I don't know, I just felt very attracted to the kind of the physicality of the playing. You can really kind of dig into the string. You can really, they're in a way less forgiving than steel strings. You have to be, you can lose your contact. You can make like an ugly sound easier, but they're also much more flexible. So you can do a lot of things with like bow pressure and kind of warm weight control and things like that. A very involved playing, a very physical playing works really well, which I love because then I feel like you can really express things in a very almost like a primal way, in a very kind of very natural, very like in the moment kind of way. So yeah, that's why I eventually recorded a Bach album on gut and then the Vivaldi, and I yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do for solo violin recitals, or like Mozart concertos and gut strings sound amazing. Yeah. And then when I play with steel strings, like I just played in Indianapolis, just the Four Seasons, but on obviously with the Malin Orchestra, so with steel strings, you still have the sound in your head, so you can do a lot of the things that you do on gut, even if you don't play with them. So I think they inform a lot of my sound and like the way I approach violin playing.
So, is there, when you're doing something like the Barber, and you've just come from, let's say you did just have like a concerto that you wanted the gut strings for,
Okay.
is there any time that you need to like physically change the approach, or are you no?
I used to, but then I started. As again, a little crazy, as you can probably tell, and I'm very nerdy about these things. So I actually started doing these programs with two instruments. I'm playing at like 415 at 440, and going between like Bach and Isai and whatever. Uh, so so that really trained me. At one point, it was like during COVID, I was living in Northern California for a couple of years, right those like 2020 to 2022, and great friends of mine, great musicians, run a festival in Sonoma, and we're good friends, and they wanted to record all Beethoven, do like a live stream of all Beethoven sonatas at 4:30 on gut with like forte piano. They have this beautiful collection of forte pianos, and which are pianos of the time, right? Like 19th century pianos. That's a little bit smaller. They have a wooden frame, and yeah, so I was like, practicing to play. I don't know. I think I was playing. I want to say I was playing like Hardman and Berg somewhere else, because it was just starting to come out of COVID and starting to have more concerts again. And but then driving up 2 hours and then putting on like switching violins, playing at 4:30 like Kreutzer Sonata with like an hour of rehearsal, right? So that really taught me a lot. I felt like I'm able now to switch pretty quickly. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So you have multiple instruments. I was actually going to ask, you talking about the bass bar?
Mhm.
Does your current main instrument have a bass bar installed in it now to handle like the
Yeah.
modern?
Yeah. So I'm sure the bass bar is probably like a couple of decades. They get changed every 20 to 30 years. And yeah, so that's not original. The instrument is from 1735. It's a beautiful Guarneri that's on loan to me. And yeah, if you didn't have that, we had the original Guarneri bass bar from back then. I mean, it wouldn't even take the pressure that we put on with the frequent, with a 440 with the steel strings. Like it just wouldn't be possible. They've done so many modifications to these instruments. It's so crazy how over centuries, especially 19th century, Guillaume, the French maker, did a lot of this. Like, a lot of their backs are thinned out, so they vibrate more and they project more. The sound posts are thicker, the bridge is different. It's really just the wood of, again, like a modified version of the box and the head. That's what's original. So
That's I just love that they can like Frankenstein
it's
in
crazy.
in some ways it is Frankenstein and yet keep like the hopefully the soul or the integrity
Yeah,
of the instrument throughout. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Serena, I was asking if there was a bass bar installed into his current, it's Guarneri?
Yeah.
Okay. Because just trying to imagine like the handling as much playing as you do, which is
Uh-huh.
constantly. Okay. Oh my God, that's so cool. And you also, can we just back up? So you meant 415, four
Hmm.
thirty, and 440. You
Yeah.
you threw out all those numbers. So for someone
Sure.
who's not familiar,
Yes.
what does that
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. So obviously the A kind of is like, well, the orchestra tunes, right? And these days, the kind of the standard, you go to any symphony, any major symphony in the US is mostly 440, 441. In Europe, it's a little bit higher, like 442, 443, like Berlin Philharmonic is 443. So that means hertz per minute. Yes. No, per second. Well, confused now. Per second, right? Yeah, per second. So oscillations per second. And that's what makes the A an A, right? And back in Bach days, especially like in Germany areas, mostly they've looked at like tuning forks and that were installed in churches, and like the way the organs were tuned and things like that. And we, basically there's a consensus that most places in Germany would play their music around 415, which is sounds like a G sharp in modern tuning. So it's about half step below. And then that's shifted over time. So people, I think, over time have wanted things to be brighter, especially because the halls have gotten bigger. And so, around Mozart's times, most music in Germany, Austria was played at 430, which is kind of in between, which is confusing if you switch back and forth like I like to do. That's the hardest, actually, much more than a full half step.
Do you have perfect pitch?
I do. So I had to like train it to turn it off, basically, to like ignore it. Yeah, that's kind of how I do it, because otherwise it would drive you crazy.
So you have to whenever you switch instruments, or you're going to this whatever new set of things is, like, you have to literally say, like, this is the A now. I am the captain now. This is the A.
And it was very, I kind of got thrown into the wolves with this the very first time I played at 430. It was with now his good friend Jonathan Cohen. He's an amazing Baroque and classical conductor and harpsichordist back. He's actually a cellist by training. He used to be like sub in the London Symphony Orchestra for when he was in his 20s. And so he was in St. Paul when I was there. And he was like, hey, like in a few months, whatever, like next season, like I'm coming back. It's like, I would love to do some chamber music with you guys. And it's like, obviously he's a Baroque specialist and a gut string specialist. And he was like, hey, like, why don't we do the 7 last words of Haydn for Easter at 430 on gut strings on 3 rehearsals. And this is like, so Haydn wrote this amazing like 50-minute piece for Easter Mass, or for the Friday, the Holy Friday, Good Friday Mass. That's very dark and very intense. It's really beautiful. And so it's very hard to do in 3 rehearsals, even at normal tuning. And that was my very first gut string concert I ever did. So so that's what I mean. It's very, like, I always say that my tuning was not as spectacular for that first concert, and it got better as I've played more of it. And now I've gotten to the point where I can switch back and forth. It doesn't bother me.
Does that feel important? Like, if you were going to work with a group of students who were hoping to follow your career path or do things similar to you, is that important for them to be able to start training that flexibility earlier?
I think it's good for them to be exposed to it. If people have all these fears, I wrote an article a couple of years ago about this. I was like, I have all these fears about starting to play on gut strings or on Baroque setups, and I'm like, just buy like $30 worth of gut strings, and they're not that expensive. Put them on your regular modern violin, whatever you have, and try it out. Like that should be the first step. Then borrow a Baroque bow and try it out. And like, you can do it so slowly, even starting with like holding your bow higher and because that kind of helps you with having a similar balance to a Baroque bow, and like the chords and all those things feel different, right? So like there's many ways that you can do it very slowly and not, you don't have to get thrown in the deep end. That I kind of did that, but I don't recommend it. So
Oh man. And so, okay, and then shifting course completely, then focusing on something thoroughly more modern, Barber in the 1930s. What kind of mindset shift do you have to do for Barber? Or or does that feel much more just like, oh, I know how to do this. This is quote unquote run of the mill?
No, I think, it's like, in a way it's the same approach, in a way it's completely different, right? So like, in a way I listen the same way. I try to hear the sound and like kind of have that feedback, like kind of instant feedback of when you're playing, what's coming out. And I also record myself a lot when I practice. So kind of really shape and create the sound that you envision for Barber, which is obviously very different than Bach or Vivaldi, but also very different than Berg. We're just talking about Berg. Like, even if they're written 3 years apart, that American language that we were talking at the beginning, right? Like that sound, that what do you call it? Apple pie. That's what you call it. I love that. completely different than the like second Viennese school bear sound that's like that he wrote in this very dark and almost like a elegy type of right concerto. So it's just a different world, and it should be played differently, even if it's the same violin, the same player, and the same bow. So,
I
yeah. No, no, go ahead.
no, no, I
Oh
just
no, I was just like I was trying to like I was just saying this like I really try to adapt my technique and my sound. Like that's I would say one of my biggest priorities when I'm learning a piece or bringing back a piece to that world of the composer. I feel like it's like speaking a different language. It shouldn't sound the same because I'm playing it and it's the same instrument. So
so in with that, I'm not sure. I'm sure you play a lot of contemporary music. Have you done premieres and things like that? And is that very different how you approach that? Because you don't have that kind of wealth of information that you can
Mhm.
research, but you
Yeah.
kind of have a singular person, a singular
Yeah.
composer whose brain you can pick. What's that process like for
Oh, it's
you?
so fun. It's so fun. Yeah, so I'm in the middle of a couple of commissions, and like obviously everybody's different. Every composer works differently. But for example, I just did a tour last summer with a Spanish composer with this piece that was kind of inspired by nature and the four seasons. And there's like this two large movements. Everything is like up here. I mean, not kidding. It looks. You can check it out on YouTube. There's like the Samkovsky violin concerto, and it's just like everything is like past the fingerboard, like 80% of the time of the first movement. Um, and so really had to understand what he was trying. Like, I had a couple of Zooms with him, and it's always nerve wracking because you'll see in this piece, for example, it's very over notated. So like, what I mean is like there's so many little notes and that are played at a crazy amount of speed in an area that you can barely hear basically or distinguish the pitches because it's so high. Um, so I was like, how accurate does he want this? How like how gestural it is, right? How is it about more of the shape or and the type of sound, or is it like he wanted like super kind of analytical and precise? And it can be done either way, but it's cool that you can just have a Zoom or pick up the phone and be like, hey, some really curious about like the general questions, and then you talk about it. Great. Maybe you even played a few passages for him. Then let's say a few weeks later, I'm like, there's so many little spots that I'm confused about, like a certain note or a certain dynamic, or like there's no way anyone's gonna hear me over this like crazy triple forte trombone section or whatever, right? And then you can go back to him again and be like, hey, so how about this and how about this, and you kind of like work together. So by the time you get to the first rehearsal, it's you kind of have a very good sense of how everything works, and the conductor hopefully too. And then it's more about like kind of coaching the orchestra on what he's trying to do, and not having to interrupt, not having to ask him all those questions like in that rehearsal, right? When you have 70 or 80 people's time to not to be efficient and to get as much work done as possible. Yeah. So, but then, for example, I'm just starting this commissioning project with a Mexican composer, Juan Pablo Contreras, and we both have a bit of like a shared, like, he's an immigrant to the U.S. His grandmother actually was from Spain, so he's a Spanish citizen as well. So we have a lot of kind of like shared things in common. I spend a lot of time in Mexico, and we, I kind of almost I feel like we've created the concept of the piece and the inspiration of the piece on both our life stories together. So that's been really cool because I've been able to talk to him from like the very first, coffee of like, hey, I'm like, I really like your music. Maybe we should do something together. And actually, he's very open to like, kind of, yeah, like creating the concept and the inspiration. And then he from here, like he started, I think, writing it this week, kind of running with it, So
Oh
that's really
man.
fun.
It's so cool. I keep thinking one of the greatest lessons I learned at school was that your goal whenever you're performing any piece is not to make the piece sound like you, but
Mm-hmm.
to give it your most like authentic, this is
Mm-hmm.
what the
Yep.
composer wanted.
Uh-huh.
And so to get to do that from go.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. And to be able, like, to me, I love this project because I'm like, wow, and I feel like it's gonna be a piece that's also about my life story and like why I am where like where I'm here in this place in this world right now, and to be able to kind of capture that in music through his brain and his mind and his his like musical ideas, it's super cool. So
Is there a piece of music besides this that you feel like is your party piece is the wrong word, but like if someone said like, okay, Francisco, give us the piece that sounds most like you.
mm. That's a hard. That's a hard one. I have this weird. So I have a bit of like a almost like kind of like a synesthesia kind of thing, where it's like each piece, like basically the way I kind of work, is I've had since I was a kid this weird like library of like instants and visuals that I can remember like down to like the very exact details of like what someone was wearing or where I was or whatever. And that's kind of what I use. I kind of like part of my process is connecting those moments with what I'm playing and like trying to understand why a certain piece is making me feel a certain way and then where that comes from, because it's always going to come from one of those things. um and yeah, so so I have certain pieces that just really really remember, like kind of have a certain reaction or a certain a certain part of me that is very deeply ingrained in my system. So for example, like the second movement of the slow movement of Vivaldi Summer, like I can almost not play it without crying every time. And and it's because it's reminds me of this moment with my grandma when I was like 10 years old, and it just has that like instant like connection to it. And doesn't matter if I'm tired, if I'm cranky, if I like, if like the concert's going well, if it's not, like it doesn't matter. I still, that just like brings it to me. Yeah. So that's why I have like, it's not like a one piece, but it's it's more of thing like a different thing for each one, basically.
You've got this Rolodex
So,
of memories and music.
Yeah, I know. It's very,
Oh.
and it's confusing, right? Because it's like, like I'll play a piece I've never played before, and then it's like kind of like these instants just kind of like show up in my kind of being. So it's I don't know. I feel like that really helps me just kind of let go and try to be as vulnerable as I can on stage and with the piece and things like that. And hopefully, I always say like the audience won't know exactly what I'm thinking, but I hope that it also instigates or inspires them to have that kind of feel that vulnerability within themselves when they're hearing it. So yeah.
Oh man, it's the
So,
coolest thing ever.
so-
Okay. I have two more questions for you, and
Sure.
the first is the barber is notoriously it's notorious for a few things, but primarily because of the speed of the last movement.
The last moment, yeah, of course.
But is that the hardest part of the concerto? Do you think that's the hardest part of the concerto?
No. So I'm actually about to post a little video about this in my social media, because there's this one place in the first movement that every time I've played it, and now every day I practice it, it's just part of this in the it's in the recapitulation there. It's also in the exposition, but that part's a little bit easier. There are these like sevenths and sixths, like that is just so awkward because it's so beautiful, it's so natural, that those lines at the beginning and of the first movement, and then all of a sudden he throws this thing that sounds easy but it's just super awkward to the hand. But you have to keep that sound and that kind of ethos that he starts the piece with, because it's 30 seconds in. I mean, in the re-exposition, basically when it repeats it. But yeah, it just, and you're by yourself. Like the orchestra will have the long note, and then you go da 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 da. You like play this like little sixth thing, and then then the next bar the orchestra comes back in, so you can really hear it. Yeah, so that's for me much harder than all the fast notes of the last round.
Love that. I love that so much. It's such a great part of the movement too. It's such a neat effect, because you're right. The intervals are totally
Right? Like
unexpected.
and it's just like this like cascade, right? Like this kind of like little waterfall of notes that is so beautiful and so unique, because they're not, like you hear these, either you hear it one way it's a sixth, the other here you hear it's the seventh, and it's just not an interval we use much in kind of romantic or kind of like a tonal, right, classical music. So yeah, it's a tough one. That's definitely the one for me.
Oh, okay, great. Well, that's exactly what we'll be listening
I know, right? Exactly. I feel like I've given it away now.
I do love that part. That's a great part.
Yeah.
Okay. And then last question for you
Sorry.
today. Okay. You have 30 minutes. You're on stage. You have access to everything on stage, every
Okay.
instrument, everything that's there. And you can
Okay.
do anything without consequences.
Okay.
What do you want to try?
But is there like what's the are you asking about a piece or are you asking like is there an audience? Like what's the setup?
That's completely up to you. In my
Mm,
mind, it's a stage full of instruments, but there's
yeah.
nobody else there. So you
So
don't,
it's just me.
it could just be you. If you prefer to have an audience, I would be curious, like, what would you try with an audience?
Interesting.
Mhm.
Wow. I think. Oh wow. That's a very good question. I mean, I think there are a couple answers. Depends if it's just like I'm just trying to have fun. Probably play every weird percussion instrument I've always wanted to play. Like they're what do you know the one with like the little ball that's like like has like a crazy sound, almost like a boink kind of sound. I forget which pieces used this, but I've seen it a couple times. Or the sheet, the metal sheet. How you know
Yeah, the sheets are
the
cool.
storm thing. Yeah, so that would be one thing. If I think um if there was I mean, like I think it'd be fun to do that with an audience and then be able to try. It's like try different, like connect different, like show different moments of different pieces and kind of connect them in my way. It's almost like like kind of like letting them be in my brain and like be like, oh, like for example, like we're talking about the barber, the scherzando part of the first movement, like da 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 da.
Yeah.
Like I was just practicing before we hopped on this, and I would love to play that against like a Duke Ellington theme, like a really old recording of Duke Ellington, and kind of show, even if Barber himself it's not like he played jazz or was, I think he was obviously surrounded by jazz and blues at that time, right? Like New York in the 30s and 40s, but it's not like he was known for interacting with a lot of jazz musicians. But I think that place is extremely jazzy to me, much more. But then the other side of it, it's like, for example, it also has a lot of like if you play it in a different way, almost sounds like Prokofiev, like the Prokofiev, like the second violin concerto. So I would love for the audience to kind of play it both ways, and then like show the passage in the Prokofiev violin concerto, and then show like a Duke Ellington theme or some jazz, like old school jazz thing, and then see how they react and like kind of have a discussion about it. Yeah.
That's super cool. So you could it's like you're just like, all right, I'm going to just cut my brain open and show you all the
Right?
different connections
That's
that I've.
literally what I was doing for the past. Like I was like, should I do it this way? Should I do it this way? I'm like, like they're both very valid, and I think that's where context and like my deep rabbit holes, I think, really helps me kind of make those decisions where I'm like, they both sound good. They're both, if you hear recordings of it, people play it in different ways, and to me, there's like very clear cut like one or the other, and I think I will play more on the jazzy side, but we'll have to find out at the concert. So
Man. And just, I mean, there's so many moments like that too, where people make choices and they can't, it's not like they can stop. You're like, okay, so I'm actually facing this.
right, I'm like
Okay,
that's what I
this
mean. You don't
is,
get that right in a concert. You can't even do it. Like I'm trying to do that a little bit with like I did this with the opening of Barbara. I just posted a few video, like a stories in the video, where it's like there are these like words that are kind of like in my brain of like there's like this generosity, there's this poetry, there's like also this like really intimate quality, and there's almost this is like kind of flowing, kind of like almost like water quality, and like all those things are valid, all those things, but how much of it do you use? Like how much? What's the percentage between those four words, for example, right? And kind of balancing those dials. It's kind of that exploration that one does every day. So yeah, it's fun.
I would love to hear a TED Talk by
I don't know
the
about that,
Francisco TED
but
Talk with an
yeah.
orchestra.
it's gonna get pretty rambling and maybe like a little what's the word I'm looking for? Like very chaotic. Like my brain goes very fast in many weird directions.
That's why
But
PowerPoints exist. You just get someone with this like
yes.
push next slide, next slide, next
I
slide.
know. You need. Well, I have friends that've done given like scientist friends that done a lot of TED talks, and like they coach. They really like break it down. They
Yeah.
they really help you kind of give that clarity and coach you through it. so then the TED Talk really is as impactful as a good TED Talk is. So yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to put a pin in that for the future because I want to see the ribbon of here's 2 measures of music and here's all the thought that went into it.
Yep.
Oh, so cool. Francisco, thank you so much.
Thank you both. This is fun. I can't wait to see you, in person, and can't wait to play together, and we'll have a great time. So
We will. Thank you.
We're looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.